Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2025 Norway Chess Tournament, which has provided us with storylines that we will be consuming and debating for weeks, months, and maybe even years to come. We've seen everything. We've seen Magnus and Hikaru potentially play their last classical game ever. We've seen Magnus Carlsen talk about retirement from classical chess. We've seen Gash take down Magnus, a thunderous fist slam. That clip is still circulating in international news. I think it's got like 50 million views. It's incredible. And today we will continue our coverage. The tournament is unfortunately coming to an end, but every day is providing twists and turns, wins and losses. It's still anybody's tournament. Let's get into it. First things first, we're going to kick things off actually with the game that Magnus Carlsen played against Weii. Keep in mind that in this tournament, there is a format of an Armageddon game if the game ends in a draw. Now, something funny happened. After Magnus had the heartbreaking defeat against Gukesh, or heartwarming, depending on if you're a fan of Gukesh, he showed up against Hikaru and he played e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop b5. Well, Weii does the same thing. Yesterday, Magnus showed up with white against Hikaru and forced a draw. Weii tries to do the same thing. He is playing mind games with the best player in the world. Yes, he's still the best player in the world. I know he lost to Gukesh, but for now, he's still walking, breathing, knows how to play chess. All right, didn't get hit in the head with a coconut, didn't forget about it, still the best player in the world. This is so funny. And Magnus does something here which is really hilarious. He plays bishop to d6. Bishop d6 is a move. It reinforces the center and basically tries to offset white's draw offer. Then Magnus went to the confessional booth and said he has no idea how to play the move bishop d6. He knows nothing about the move bishop d6. This is the level of chess that we have reached in the last 3 rounds of the tournament. The last 3 rounds of a chess tournament are like the last 2 weeks of school. And not the last 2 weeks of school when you have final exams and graduation. I'm talking like 6th and 7th grade when like there is no graduation yet, you know, you just... Anyway, d3. The problem with black's position is black has a bishop on d6. Like, this is ultimately the problem, is that white can play this like a completely normal e4, e5 game, except it's actually black who has put the bishop in front of the d-pawn, and this is not how you should play chess, obviously. And so Weii is like, well, now Magnus is going to have to go here, and now it's as if Magnus played an Italian, except his bishop glitched or mouse slipped, and he put the bishop on d6. And yeah, now white has the option to take on c6, and that is exactly what Weii does, right? White could have castled here, and the move d6 could have been played, but instead Weii takes on e5, and is basically like, I'm just up a pawn. Now, black can sacrifice the bishop, bring out the king, and fork. Another thing that Magnus can do is do that same idea, attacking f2 and e5, but with queen d4. Now, from first glance, it looks like black is just winning. It looks like Weii lost the game in 9 moves. Not true. There is mate. This is a hanging knight, but he has this move and this. And this is actually what Magnus, all the way back here in the confessional, talked about. He said, I don't know anything about the move bishop d6. By the way, subscribe to GothamChess in case you haven't. Really like his videos. And he also said he doesn't know where to put the bishop. Like, he doesn't know if to play b5, bishop c5. And he talked about how the critical idea is knight e5 and all of this. And when the dust settles, Magnus wins his pawn back. But Weii gets his gold. And today will be Magnus's second shortest game recap, because it was very clear Weii was not interested in putting up a massive fight. He just wanted to score some points. And this is just a dead draw. Absolutely dead. Nothing special about it. Even if Magnus is actually going to lose a pawn on c7, due to white's doubled c-pawns, white will never get anything going. And the game ends with Weii up a pawn, but that pawn is never going to be anything important. And the players make a draw. So Magnus's second game in a row of a non-game. He just doesn't have a game at all. The classical chess career could be coming to a very peculiar conclusion, as he only has 2 more classical games to go against Fabiano and against Arjun Erici, which is just strange. I mean, this is kind of like a strange... But now they have to play Armageddon. And keep in mind, now they get 10 minutes versus 7. Black gets draw odds. Now, Weii has been an Armageddon machine. He has beaten he beat Hikaru. He beat Magnus. So he's going to try to beat Magnus again. And lo and behold, this man, Weii, is trying to play the scholar's mate against Magnus. No, I'm just kidding. He's just playing the bishop's opening. He plays knight f6, d3. This is called the bishop's opening because white doesn't develop a knight. Now, because white never played knight f3, attacking the pawn, and black never played knight c6, defending the pawn, black has the benefit in the bishop's opening of playing the move c6. Basically saying, well, you're stupid. You didn't put a knight out, so now I'm going to go d5 and bishop d6 and have a nice position. But I'm not going to put my knight on c6. Weii plays knight f3, and Magnus plays the move bishop e7. This is just a move to get Weii thinking. He doesn't immediately play d5. He's actually going to go d6, play a little bit more passively. White cannot take this pawn because queen a5 check would win the knight with a fork. d6, c3, knight d7. And from the opening, black is very slightly worse, a little bit of a passive position, but everything is fine. Knight f8, knight e6, and Weii plays d4. Weii is so good at exploiting these tiny little micro advantages. I mean, he's really, really good. I want to see him play a lot more this year. He doesn't play at the most elite events all the time somehow, but he really should. Knight d2, and now the bishop undevelops. There is no way knight d2. There's no way knight d2 and bishop f1 is the right way to play this position. You kind of feel like it's something a little bit more ambitious, but it's Armageddon. But at the same time, the time advantage is almost gone of 3 minutes. So Weii plays a4. And now Magnus kind of has a Philidor position. Not that that means anything. You probably watching this right now have no idea what the Philidor is. Don't worry about it. It's a defense where black plays e5, d6, c6, and it's not a bad opening, but it's a little bit hard to understand. Weii goes in with the knight. It's obvious he's going to try to take the bishop. Maybe not right now. Maybe on the next move. There it is. White has the bishop pair. Bishop d2. Chill position. Magnus threatening a queen trade. 4 minutes versus 3:25 approximately. Again, 40-second time advantage. Not sure if it's enough time to capitalize, but we'll see. Bishop e7. And, I mean, yeah, now Magnus is taking over. Magnus up on time with the black pieces, and he is playing with 2 results. It's really nice to control 2 of the 3 possible results in a chess game. White wins, black wins, and a draw. Bishop b5, pawn takes d4, knight takes d4. Just very simple chess. Breaking down the center, powerful knight on e4. Rooks will swing over when it becomes possible. If not, then you're just going to come down the center line. Queen d3, Magnus plays g6, nice and solid. Where he plays queen e3, 2 minutes a player. Rook d4, and knight g5, nice move. Knight g5 is just trying to put the knight on the e6 square. You cannot take this knight because of queen takes d4. Queen to d2, and in this position, Magnus Carlsen blunders the entire game away in 1 move. If Magnus had just finished his plan of knight to e6, like this, attacking the rook, and white would have taken, then he would have went rook takes, queen takes, and rook c2 with counterplay. White would have went back, black would have played some sort of knight d4. The game would have ended in a draw, or you can play probably rook b2 as well. Instead of that, Magnus tries to simplify the game like this, and now the queen can take the knight. And it can take the knight because if you take the rook, this rook is now hanging, which it was not a move ago. And that just goes to show you that it doesn't matter if you're literally the #1 ranked player in the world, you will blunder a knight and lose the game immediately. And I want everybody here to rejoice, because just know, it never gets any easier. It doesn't matter if you've been playing chess for a week, a month, a year, a decade, a century. I wonder if anybody watching this has been playing chess for 100 years. I kind of doubt it, but, you know, you'd probably have to be at least 103 years old. Yeah, it never gets any better. And Weii just brings his rooks together, his bishop, and this game is over. You are just going to win it purely on the fact that you have much more material than your opponent. Everybody's safe. The king is going to hide here. Rook g8 is made. Magnus Carlsen resigns. Weii just 2-0'd Magnus in Armageddon. Now, admittedly, Magnus kind of 2-0'd himself by playing the move rook c2. He laughed. There were no tables slammed, although he did punch Weii in the face. No. So Weii, man, Armageddon demon. Now, I've got more games for you, and they are exciting. Okay, Hikaru versus Gash. Now, let me fill you in on a little bit of something here. Hikaru, in his last recap, he did what's called pre-moving the recap. All right? In that recap, he was done with his game, but Magnus was still playing Gash, the famous table slam game. And Hikaru said Magnus crushed Gukesh today. and then that's not what happened. And people were on top of it, you know? And this is a big deal now because these guys played in the last round of the candidates. Hikaru could have beaten Gukesh to maybe win the candidates. He didn't do that. And Gukesh beat Hikaru in the first game of this tournament. I know there is a lot riding on this game. There's a lot about this game. This is the next generation. It's the world champ. Gukesh hasn't faltered in this tournament. He has back-to-back classical wins. E4, E5, and Hikaru goes for a scotch, but it's not quite a scotch. It actually becomes a 4 knights. And I know a lot of people were both cheering for Hikaru to win and to lose this game after that recap. And I just love this about competitive chess. Like these dudes, the ego, the self-belief you have to be a top chess player is monstrous. Bishop to D3, Gukesh castling, not playing D5, castles D5. Hikaru also chose this opening when he beat Fabiano Caruana some time ago. And here Gukesh plays this move, Bishop G4, F3. This is a very, very long line. And I think here, yes, Bishop G5 was the move chosen by Hikaru. Pawn takes D5, Bishop F6, Queen F6. I think this whole thing is like some sort of theory. Queen B2, Rook B1, Bishop C5, King H1, Queen E5. Both guys rattling off moves. Rook E1, Queen D6. Check here. And I think Queen E2 is the first move. And now Gukesh spent 30 minutes. So I think Queen E2 is like is the move. Yes, is the move. And after Queen E2, I think Hikaru was talking about the fact that Black needs to play Bishop G6. And Gukesh went here first, and Hikaru threatened this, and now Bishop G6 was played. And taking with the F pawn, rather than taking with the H pawn, gave Hikaru some life. Gukesh took with the F pawn to create a barrier around his king, and to maybe get a little bit of counterplay, but it was actually H takes, which was a bit better. And now, Hikaru puts on a surgery gown, doing his best Dr. House impression. And he's going to try to operate on the position. This is the position that he got from the opening, up 30 minutes on the clock. Gukesh went here. His idea was that the king is going to be forever safe, and there's going to be some open lines. And he'll suffer, but he'll be fine. I'm not so sure. The black king is going to really struggle to get out because it's always going to be boxed in. The black king is going to really struggle to get out because the pawns can't move, because you're going to lose one of the pawns. White has a very easy game with the king. And if you let the computer run here in a high depth, this position is a nightmare for black to defend. Rook F8 is apparently a bad move. But every move, if you let the computer think, it doesn't have a choice. White just goes King G2. 2 improvements. G3, King G2. You don't let Gukesh get to the F4 square. Gukesh plays Bishop back to B6. Hikaru plays H4. This is just a warning shot. Don't mess with me. I'm always ready to play H5. You cannot take. And I think why Gukesh did not take with the H-pawn is because he didn't like the open file. He didn't like that the attack was coming in. But the bad news is the attack comes in anyway. So Gukesh goes Queen C5. He's threatening Queen F2. Hikaru's like, go ahead. Play Queen F2. Play Queen F2. I don't care. Look at the time. 1 hour time advantage for Hikaru. Queen F2, just king goes up. So Queen F5. What's interesting is Stockfish actually thinks you can undouble black's pawns and win the endgame, which is heinous. And Hikaru does not do that. Queen F6. Rook E5, excellent move. Every move is making an improvement. H5 is incoming as well. Queen D6 from Gukesh. C3, taking away the D4 square. Potentially weakening some squares, obviously, but C3, not letting anything get close. Here they repeat once. I think Hikaru did this because he wanted to threaten a draw. Now if Hikaru plays King G2, it's a draw. But he doesn't make the draw. He has ideas like Rook E6, Rook E7, H5. Sometimes F5 can also work, but you want to be really careful how you do this. Bishop C5. King back to G2. Queen to B6. Notice how black literally cannot do anything. King to H3. Queen back to D6. H5. Go back to move 21. And fast forward to the move H5. None of black's position moved. This might have been one of the worst positions Gukesh has had in the entire tournament. His position was stuck completely stuck. And Hikaru walked into the position and took what he wanted. Now, queen d7 check. Came back to g2. Bishop to d6. Doesn't matter. The light square attack is vicious. There has never been a greater example of opposite colored bishops benefit the attacking player. This bishop is a spectator as the entire king side is ravaged. Ravaged, pillaged. He's just going straight down the h-file. Rook to f6. Rook e8 check, bishop back to f8. Queen a8. Look at this. Gukesh plays queen d6. Rook d8, removing the queen from the defense. Pawn takes g6. The black king is completely falling. And there is no way to create any counterplay. Gukesh plays here. Queen c8. Oh my goodness, Hikaru in a surgery gown. Dear me. Some people would pay good money to see that. Queen to c8. Queen to c5. And now, bishop e4. This is the best move in the position. It defends the diagonal. It also threatens bishop d5 in a lot of positions, as well as rook d5 and rook h5. I'm just saying. All right, I'm just saying. There's always some useful move for bishop to e4. It's preventing a lot of moves. Rook d1, rook h1. There's a lot of, different h-file swings. g5. Gukesh goes for counterplay. Pawn takes. How many times did the king go g2 to h3 in this game? Rook back to f7. g6. Queen g4. And the final move of the game, bishop to d5. Black cannot move anything. The king is completely paralyzed. The rook has to defend the bishop. The bishop is going to f7. Nobody can guard the bishop and its mate. I think it's one of the best games Hikaru ever played. Now, granted, the cards that he were dealt could not have been more perfect. This is pocket aces equivalent of a chess position after 20 moves. But if I played this position, I would have lost with white. I would have found a way to lose. Lose, maybe not. But not win, and nowhere near like that. But maybe I would lose it too. Look at black's pieces. Nothing ever moved. Just an absolutely fantastic game. A statement game from Hikaru. He had lost a game to Gukesh earlier in this tournament. All right? But he gets revenge, and it's 1-1. And you know what? I'm just going to say you love to see it. Hikaru was 2,700 before Gukesh was born. Before he was born. You got to just love and respect the competitive nature of these rivalries. These dudes are still around. They're still battling. This is epic stuff. Gukesh goes down. But we're going to keep going because I have another game to show you. Arjun Erici, Fabiano Caruana. Fabiano beat Erici earlier in the event. Fabiano's winning the tournament. Now with the black pieces, he plays what's called the Queen's Gambit Decline Rogozin variation. Erici plays a3. This is one of the lines. Takes, c5. Takes. And he plays for g3. He plays for Catalan style. Bishop g2. Fabi blocks the center. Attacks the pawn on c3. Erici castle. Still in his preparation. Not thinking. Look at Erici's time. He's not thinking. So clearly it's Fabi who's going to have to do the early work in the game. Rook d1. Erici still not thinking. Fabiano now down 37 minutes on the clock. Erici finally takes a moment to think. He's got the rooks on the D and the B files, putting some pressure. Bishop d7. Rook b4. And throughout the middle game, we got to a very tense moment. Both rooks ready to go. All the pieces out. Knights, bishops, queens, rooks, pawns. Big decision from Erici to get rid of his light squared bishop and try to put something and establish a control on the dark squares in the middle. But then he didn't take a free pawn. He didn't take a free pawn. Obviously, he didn't like something about taking the free pawn. But damn it, it's a free pawn. It's a free pawn. I mean, you go in, you get out, and the pawn here is still hanging too. He goes here. Fabi's like, what? He didn't take my pawn. And now, over the next phase of the game, Fabiano Caruana begins showing why he was once 2850. Because he senses hesitancy from his opponent. Fabiano also can create an outside pass pawn later in the game. Opposite colored bishops benefit the attacking side. You know what's going to happen in this game? An attack. Pretty soon. Both guys' kings begin opening up. Rook e4. And before you know it, we are in an insanely spicy game. Both kings are just moves away from getting mated. Queen b7, king g6. Erici goes rook g1. Queen a7. Fabiano Caruana here backs up, but there was a moment he could have played d4. The idea of this move is you sacrifice a pawn, but you take back the light squares. You replace the pawn with the bishop, and then you always have checkmating ideas. He had d4 here. He plays queen f5. Bishop to f8 threatens checkmate. Fabi plays queen g6. Both guys get into a time trouble here. Queen f5 back, queen c7, and Erici, I think it was in this position, plays b5, which the commentators did not understand. They did not understand b5 because they were, what about pawn takes? And now the winning move for Fabiano is again d4. Disconnecting the bishop from seeing this. d4 is findable. And then if bishop takes, the idea is that you have bishop d5 ideas. Not right away, but that's the idea. d4, it's findable, but not with 29 seconds on the clock. Not with 29 seconds. You just take the pawn. But they didn't understand why Fabi didn't take with the pawn, because he gives up a check, but then immediately he's winning again. Rook e2, queen b1 check, bishop d3. It looks like Fabi is just going to organize his pieces in a way, but not only does he not organize his pieces in any sort of way, because there's no checkmate threat, Erici plays here, and Erici plays here, and Erici is coming straight back down. From a totally losing position, he rises like a phoenix. Pawn takes g4, h5. He sacrifices two pawns, g-pawn and h-pawn. Check. Queen g4. Oh my goodness. Fabiano now has to defend this bishop. But he has to defend this bishop with the queen. He has to give a check and protect with the queen maybe. He goes here. And he blunders into a position where the bishop is hanging. The rook is hanging. And rook h3, if he's not pinned, is hanging. Fabiano Caruana is losing. Out of nowhere. And he goes queen h5 in a panic. The queen goes down. And Arjun Erici wins this game with beautiful technique. Sacks the bishop. Because the queen is going to check the king. And then win the bishop back if black takes. And you're going to see that's what's going to happen. And this is only winning because of this pawn. If white did not have this pawn, you can create what's called a defensive fortress. You put a rook somewhere it's defended by your only remaining pawn, the king stands around, and the king, rook, and the pawn repel the white king from getting closer. But because white has the pawn, you are not able to make the fortress, and Arjun Erici wins this game. I don't know if Fabi hung this rook or just played a spy check and just gave it up. You could see the pain in Fabiano Caruana's moves when he realized he could not believe, he was disgusted. He just spent over 4 hours crafting the perfect game. And there were moments he had d4 on the board and maybe could have played it. It was never particularly easy. But right here, the counterattacking move d4. If bishop takes d4, you had bishop e6, rook h4, queen h3 ideas. Crazy, absolutely unbelievable scenes. Crazy, 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 crazy. Arjun Erici gets a win. Gukesh loses, so Erici overtakes Gukesh again in the live rankings. Now, the women's side of things, this one between Sarakadam and Humpy was very solid. It was solid. It was peaceful. It was a Queen's Gambit declined. Very solid and balanced game. Black played a very traditional setup. Bishop e7. White traded, looking to keep the piece. The rooks went to the middle. h3, bishop c2, rook c8. Rooks went to the middle for Humpy, the legend. White kind of played more with the knights and the bishops in the early middle game, but then decided, you know what, I got to put my rooks in the middle as well. It was tense. Black got a very dominant position with the bishops, putting pressure. This is obviously not the structure that we are, you're kind of looking to achieve, but it's still a position that shouldn't be losing just outright. A checkmate was threatened. Sarah moved her knight into the middle of the board, threatening a fork on c6, and Humpy was just, throughout the middle game, putting a lot of pressure. It got really out of hand right around here when the pawn went down, and black was just a comfortable pawn up. Excellent repositioning to the other side of the board, but then we got into a time trouble. Both players with around 2 minutes on the clock, queen and bishop endgame, anything can happen. in a position like this, you got to simplify down correctly. And Humpy immediately threatened the queen trade. Bishop e1. This position looks totally lost for white because white is not just a pawn down. White also has a totally miserable position. King g6. And then I think it was somewhere here. It was like totally lost because b5 counterattack and the pawn promotes. Humpy took, because she had 30 seconds on the clock, and played e5. And this is a draw. It's a draw. After pawn takes, king takes, a5 is holding. a5, b5. If you push the a pawn again, apparently it's a draw. Because if you push the pawn and play bishop c3, you hold. This is unbelievable. Look, she went bishop f8. She lost. But a6 and bishop c3 is the idea. Why is it the idea? Because this is losing for black, right? Black is pinned and the pawn promotes, which is why black has to go here, but bishop c3 and you still can't take. And anywhere you move, you lose this pawn. Maybe even h5 and bishop g7. Sarakadam, in this position, needed to play a6 and bishop c3. She had a draw on the board. But she goes bishop f8, and this doesn't work, because after king d5, you catch the pawn with the king, and now there are no more plot twists, and you simply win the game. There was a plot twist right at the last moment. Imagine saving the game like that. That would have been, oh my goodness. And she had it. She had it in the bag. And Humpy, I think instead of e5, well, b5 here was winning. I think here she needed to play h5, which is not an easy move to play. But the point is that the white king never, ever, 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 ever enters the territory. And after a5, this is winning. Because even though you get to a similar looking position, black actually just walks the king over and is fine. You don't go here. Because after takes, bishop c3, you lose the game. That's the only thing you have to be careful about. But you can win an endgame, even if you're down a pawn. Now, two games that were decided in the Armageddons because the classicals were drawn. Anna Muzichuk, Lei Tingjie. This was a open Spanish variation. A lot of theory was played. And actually, from the early game, Lei had a great position. And we've seen a lot of these traditional chess openings just simply not land good enough positions in Armageddon. And I think, you know, Anna went ballistic here. She has to go deliver some sort of a checkmate. Lei could have went bishop g4, maybe queen c7, just putting some pressure. But instead, Lei here sacked her rook for defensive reasons. She didn't want to allow knight g5. The problem is, I'm not so sure the defensive reasons are there. Because suddenly came f4, and she went f5, but white now has two new fronts of attack, which she didn't have previously. So you sacrifice the rook because you feel the attack is coming. You try to do it for defensive reasons, but it just does not work out in the end, and Anna Muzichuk is going to win this game in the Armageddon without many plot twists. The queens come in, rook comes in, and there are some checks, but that's it. The checks run out, and the queen is won. That was kind of crazy because Lei had a very good position. Had she played like bishop g4, I mean, obviously she was afraid of getting mated, but she had a good position. It wasn't so clear. And Vaishali versus Ju Wenjun, the 5-time world champ. This one was a Berlin. Vaishali gave a Berlin to her opponent, which is crazy because remember the format. The format is you play this opening, you play 10 minutes versus 7 to not make a draw, and you play into a mainline Berlin, which is like one of the most drawish solid openings in chess. But I guess she's just going to rely on her time advantage. She gets a time advantage early in this game. Bishop to d3, queen g5, and guess what? It was actually a really good choice because she had an easy game where she was putting the world champ under significant pressure. It's an opening that you obviously play to make a draw, but in this particular case, Vaishali just got a seamless position up 3 minutes on the clock and an easy game where she's just going to try to, you know, keep making the moves. Bishop c2, Ju Wenjun went for b5. She got her counterplay going, but f4, crazy position. White with a 2-minute time advantage. Black goes for the queen trade and queen h4, and the attack just never stopped. Vaishali conjure up like the ghost of Mikhail Tal in this game, sacrificed her entire queen side. F takes e6, pawn takes f7, and Too many threats. Too many threats. Rook takes g6 is the end of the game. Sack the rook, win the queen. Excellent game from Vaishali. Excellent, excellent game. And after 8 rounds, Humpy Conneroon first with 13.5. Then it's Ju and June 12.5. 12.5 for Anna. Lei with 10. Vaishali with 9.5. We see Sarakadam there with 6. And in the men's, Weii is still in last. And I think he just kind of wanted to get on the board. They are pulling away from him. But it's a 2-point race among 5 people. 1 classical win anywhere. And it's a huge shakeup. Hikaru and Gukesh are tied. Magnus is only half a point ahead of them. Had Magnus won the Armageddon, he would have been tied for first. Fabi got 0 points today, which is heartbreaking for Fabi fans. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.